Hello my lovers, welcome to episode 2 of Big Sister Energy. Another week has come by so quickly. Now if you were here last week, you'll remember that we talked all things having your own back. We talked about confidence, authenticity, self-love, and how you need all of those three things to have your back. And there is no better way to have your back than when it comes to this week's topic, which is the almost relationship, the situationship, the grey area, we're just seeing where it goes. We're just kind of fumbling around in this area where I don't really know what's going on. Do you know what's going on? Are we happy about this? Is there clarity? What the fuck is happening? Situationships can be anything from light-hearted and pleasant to utterly soul-destroying. And we're going to be talking about this end of the spectrum today. Now, I want to preface that what I'm doing right now is re-recording the first 20 minutes of this podcast. I recorded the whole thing yesterday, and this first part, the light on the camera, I think it's because I turned my lamps on, it was like really blown out and you can't see me at all. I'm just like this ghostly silhouette. So if I look slightly different in about, 5 minutes time, then that's why. It's because the rest of it was what I recorded yesterday, the OG, the original. So this is a sit down and redo. Cheers to that. Now, my most recent relationship, slightly unusual. For me, this was an almost relationship. This was obviously something very different, not your everyday run of the mill, like something like 1 in a million, let's face it. But I ultimately ended that relationship because it was giving situationship territory where I felt like the energies weren't reciprocated because it followed all of these things that I'm going to get into, right? Which we'll talk about in a moment. Things like romanticisation, waiting for someone to give you what they are telling you they're going to give you, but without actually actioning it. All of these things were happening in that kind of like almost relationship for me, and it's just not a great place to be in. I know there's lots of you who feel like you're in a situationship, an almost relationship too, and that's why this week's episode is all about that. How to deal with it, how to get out of it, how to move on from it, and ultimately not find yourself in a long-term situationship which is ultimately going to break your heart. Now the thing is, it's difficult to know what is like dating, what is a situationship. They are very different things, right? Dating is when things are light-hearted, you're getting to know somebody. It's very early stages, right? And ultimately, really early on if there's good vibes with somebody. The situationship part comes when you've started dating. There's little kind of drop nuggets of potential future, nuggets of, oh, I could be this or we could be this, without it ever coming to fruition, without commitment, without moving forward, without taking those steps to get to the next level. And the stark difference for me between dating and a situationship area is that some people are like, oh, I need a little bit of time to really know. I need a bit of space. I need there to be no pressure. I'm sorry, I don't agree. When you know. When you're really into someone, you act accordingly. So I don't buy this, space and time and let's not go too fast and all of that. Sorry. And it's not just the lesbian in me, but when you really like somebody, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, these things don't matter. Space and time, and I'm not a texter, this, that, and the other. We're going to get into it. Dating should be really fun and exciting, and personally I think it's a numbers game. It's not for everybody. Some people need to just have focus on one person at a time. For me, I'll date a few different people at once. That's just, in my experience, the best way to go about it. I don't really like wasting my time. I tend to know on a first or second date if I really like somebody, and then you can start whittling it down. But a situationship is very different. It's where you're being offered the next step, going exclusive without ever really getting there in a way that fulfills you and fulfills all of your needs. Ultimately, a situationship is a destination. The destination is nowhere. And they just leave you feeling like shit. It makes you feeling unsure and anxious and undesired. Like you're in a chase, like you have to prove something. And we are not doing that no more. And this is exactly what this episode is about. I am going to help you leave a situationship in the past, and we're coming out the other side of it hotter, wiser, kinder, more ready to meet our person. So look, a situationship is basically access without an agreement. It's touching, it's texting, texting, it's flirting, it's becoming intimate with one another, emotionally, physically. And there are different reasons that we might stay in a situationship, right? And it's very human. I don't think there's one person on the planet who's never been in a situationship. I think the first reason often that we stay in a situationship is that we have that hope factor. You know, we're hoping for something amazing to happen. We're hopeful that this could be our potential next real relationship. We're hoping that these, you know, little sprinklings that we're getting from somebody is actually going to lead somewhere. And of course, that's like this amazing thing, you know, the hope of falling in love, the hope of having found your person. And that's like such a beautiful human emotion. But all that we're doing when we're just dating someone with the hope of something happening is dating someone's potential, right? It's very similar to what we'll talk about in a minute about romanticising people. Hoping that something is going to happen, it's just wishful thinking. We all hope every now and again that we're going to win the bloody lottery. Do you know what I mean? So whilst I want us to be like positive and excited about finding somebody and potentially meeting somebody, staying in a situationship with the hope that something's going to happen, like if you're the one putting all of the effort in, if you're the one doing all of the hoping, what are we doing, babes? We're not being matched here. Just staying with somebody in this like hopeful way is, you know, you dating their potential and not their actual pattern. Because if you were in this stage of dating that's kind of almost in the kind of exclusive phase, just kind of passing over into like being with somebody, you wouldn't be hoping, like I'm really hoping for it, because ultimately it's kind of like anxiety underneath it, or you wouldn't be feeling like, is this happening? Isn't it happening? When somebody knows, they know. Stop dating someone's potential and start looking at their actual patterns. We also sometimes stay in that kind of situationship phase because we've got like a scarcity mindset. We're like worried, like, I'm getting older, or, you know, there's not many people that I've found recently, or I'm sick of the dating apps, I don't want to go back on the dating apps. Like, we're worried that this might be the best that we're ever going to get, and that is just simply not true. We cannot be dating someone just because we're worried that someone better isn't going to come along. And I get it, like sometimes there is like this one amazing thing about someone, or multiple amazing things about someone. Ultimately, you might think they're really right for you, but you would know if they thought you were really right for them. You just wouldn't be in this spot. So having that idea of like, oh, but you know, this person's so amazing, like I don't think I'm gonna find anyone better. When somebody loves you back, when someone's like obsessed with you back, that's better. That is better than wanting someone and them not wanting you back. I promise you now, there are plenty of people out there excited, waiting to meet you. Another reason that we sometimes stay in situationships is because of our ego, right? Because we've had to work so hard to get this person, you've chased them down, you've continued on, you've texted them, and you've been patient and waited when they don't text you back for a week, or you've been patient and been the only one that's putting in all of the effort, because ultimately in the end you want to be a winner. You want to have won the chase, you want to have pushed through and got there in the end. But babe, that's literally just your ego, right? And you've had to forsake your self-respect, which ultimately will hurt your ego harder in the end. For what? To say that you've won? To say that I made it, I made you like me? Because did they? Did they me? Did they? Your person would not need you to win them over. Your person will be there willing to let you win the race because they love you, not because they want to see you work hard for them. And like, I get it, sometimes the chase is like very exciting, you know, that kind of like, ooh, push and pull. It's like dopamine hits, right? It's why we get like addicted to scrolling on our phones. It's not bloody good for us, okay? So please use that same mindset when it comes to dating and relationships. You know, just because when someone kind of dangles a carrot and then they give you a little piece of that carrot, it's a little dopamine hit, right? And that is addictive. So the chase oftentimes is like very exciting, exhilarating. It gives us this lease of life sometimes that we're like, oh God, I feel alive from this. But you're literally just living in high adrenaline. It's like fight or flight. Like at some point you will crash and you're gonna feel like shit, I promise you now. And I tell you this from experience because I have been in like, a situationship that went on for a really long time, and all that happened was she kept you know, breadcrumbing me, left, right and centre. And those, you know, if you just love me this way, or if you just were a little bit like this, or if you could just wear that, and then actually if you just do a little bit more of this, but the goalpost would move all the time. It's never going to change. Like, you're never going to cross the finish line. But again, this is like where ego comes into play. You know, I was eager to be a winner at the end of this. I was like, I can shapeshift and I can transform into this perfect person that you want me to be for you. God, it's draining, it's horrible, it's the worst feeling in the world. And that's just ego, right? That's just ego being hopeful, you know, hoping that in the end you're gonna love this version of me that I've morphed myself into. And what did I do? Completely change who I was for this person. For what? And this is why you have to continually look inwards and ask yourself, is this person making me happy? Am I being who I really want to be with this person? Like, and if any part of you says no, you need to leave. You need to get out of it. I would rather be happy and alone than be chasing something that makes me feel like shit. And I get that that's really scary, being alone. It's like so, you know what, it's kind of like so looked down upon as well, like being single, but it's fucking fantastic. And maybe we'll do a whole episode on that because I feel like I'm like spiraling now with my ADHD. But I promise you, it is better to be out of this horrible situationship, this weird non-relationship, and just focus on yourself and focus on finding the right person for you than it is to stay in this, I promise. And look, it's not always like you're in a situationship because the other person is being shit to you. Maybe that's just where they're at. Maybe that's just what they're looking for at the moment. They're looking for, you know, a little bit of connection with non-commitment. But if it makes you feel bad, then you can't be doing it. Like, there has to be clear communication. If that's where they're at, it's not a bad thing, as long as they have communicated that with you. But if it's a case that this is where somebody is and they're just wanting to keep you there because they know if they say to you, actually, I'm not ready for a relationship right now, that's not going to be right for you, and you don't want to do that, and you won't want to see them anymore, that's when we've got the problem. The last thing I just want to touch on is that I think we can really romanticize people. I think especially if you are, you know, a very giving, empathetic, loving person, we often expect people to just act how we would act, right? And that's where we can fall into the trap of being in a situationship because, you know, maybe we've had like a couple of really good dates and then you start to really think, oh, this person could be this and they could be that and they could give me these things. And before you know it, you've created a whole entire version of someone that they never even said they was to begin with. You have to look at people's actions and not just listen to their words. You have to take the situation for what it really is and not romanticize and fantasize and create this fictional person that doesn't exist before you. And it's really hard because when you do get wrapped up in all of those like lovely feelings and lovely emotions and you start to picture somebody and you imagine how they would act in different circumstances, but you don't know that because you ain't got there yet. You haven't met that side of them yet. Like, you are in one of these, like, you know, weird situationships, or even if you're in a relationship right now that actually isn't serving you, maybe you're in the early stages of something, I want you to sit in front of a mirror and I want you to act as if you're having a FaceTime, okay? I want you to be having a FaceTime with your friend. But the version of you in the mirror is you, and you are your friend. And I want you to tell your friend the story of the situationship that you are in right now. I want you to tell all of the details. I want you to go all into it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want you to receive that story whilst you're looking at yourself in the mirror, having a FaceTime with yourself. I want you to receive the story as if you were hearing your friend tell you this story, okay? Because I can 100% guarantee that you are gonna sit there, you're gonna pop your head to the side, and you're gonna go, really, babe? Really? This is what you want to accept? I want you to really go into it. You know, sometimes they won't text me back for a couple of days at a time. You know, they said that they wanted to do this with me, but they haven't set a date yet. You know, I did ask them if they wanted to meet my friends, but then, you know, they haven't said that they can or that they will. Tell yourself the story and listen to it as if your friend was telling you that they were in this situation. It's so hard to take our own advice, but you know that you wouldn't let your friend carry on doing what you're doing right now. So why are you letting yourself? And ultimately, we romanticize things because fantasy is cheaper than change. We romanticize things because fantasy is cheaper than change. Meaning that it takes so much more effort, so much more digging deep, so much more, daily repetition of wanting to improve and make a difference to how you think and feel. It takes so much more effort to do that than to just live in fantasy land. So this is how we're gonna make the change. This is how we are going to leave situationships in the past, because you fucking deserve the world and you are not going to settle for less than what you want a day longer. So I want you to grab a notebook, okay? I want you to divide a page into 2 columns. On the left-hand side, I want you to write what is real. On the right-hand side, I want you to write what I've made up. What is real? What I've made up. In this left-hand column, what is real, you're gonna write the things that they actually do, okay? They don't text me back for hours at a time. They've never planned a date. They've only ever come to see me once. They are quiet and distant when they meet my friends. Write all of the actual, factual, actionable things that they do in this column. Then in this column, what I've made up, we're gonna write the excuses, the hopefulness, the ego, the romanticization that you have created about them. They're just really busy all the time. When they're at work, they don't get a chance to message me all day. Oh, they weren't feeling that great that day that they met my friends. Oh, they're just shy. They're just not into the same things as me. Once they're less busy, they're gonna have way more time for me. If I just back off a little bit, they might open up more. They're just not the sort of person that's really on their phone. They don't really do social media. I'm the extrovert in the relationship. They're the introvert, so they don't really want to plan the dates. They're quite happy just to let me do it. They're just so laid back. Then I want you to look at what's on this piece of paper, okay? And particularly I want you to look at this left-hand column. I want you to read it. I want you to really read it, really take it in and ask yourself, if all of these things are happening now, who knows what could be happening in a year or 2 years' time? If I stay in this situation, is what is happening in this column, is it enough for me? Is this the sort of relationship that I truly want to be in? And I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this to you. I know that it's not. And I don't want you to convince yourself that in any way this column negates what is real. Right, now, once we've made these lists, okay, there's really just 3 clear questions. There's really 3 clear what's wrong with me? 3 clear questions that you need to ask yourself, okay? And this is gonna help you decide, is this something worth sticking at or isn't it, okay? Once you've got your real and what's not real, ask yourself these 3 things. What do I actually want in the next 3 months? Not years down the line, okay? Let's, forget the 10, 20, 30 years, forget the marriage part. What do you want in the next 3 months? Have a look at your what's real column. Is it this? The second question is, have they shown that they can give you what you want and need consistently? Not just little kind of pepper droppings, whatever the fuck they are. Not little like smatterings here and there. Have they been able to show you that they can give you what you want and need consistently, in a consistent manner? The last thing I want you to ask yourself is, if I stop initiating this, would the connection still be alive in a week or 2 weeks' time? If you took a step back and wasn't putting in the level of effort that you are, do you think this relationship would still be a thing? If more than one of those things you've answered no, then it's a no, babe. It's a no. But what I want you to remember is, just because it's a no doesn't mean it's not a massive fucking yes for you. Because saying no to something, moving on from something, leaving something behind is not a loss if it was never serving you to begin with. And look, you might be thinking at this point in time, oh, actually, I'm in this situationship and, things aren't actually as bad as, what they could be after hearing what you've got to say, Helen. But what I want you to do is just bear all of these things in mind. If you're thinking to yourself, oh no, actually, I think things are kind of okay and I might be overthinking things or whatever, make sure it's not just, a fantasy that you're projecting here. Make sure that's really real for you. However, if this is hitting home and you're like, yeah, okay, I feel seen. I feel seen here. I'm gonna have to do something about this. Then here's how we're gonna go about it, okay? I think a lot of the time we really overcomplicate things by saying far too many words than we actually really need to. Most of what we want to say oftentimes can be done in 1 or 2 sentences. Now, the reason that we tend to overcompensate and over-explain things is because we feel bad, right? And you think the more words that you use and the more explanations and the more sort of fancy and dancey we deliver something to somebody, we think it's going to be easier, it's going to be less intense, less harsh, a bit kinder, but it's not, okay? It's really not. Being direct whilst being kind, I'm fairly sure I said this in the last podcast, is a blessing. It leaves room for no confusion. When you say things really succinctly and just, to the point, it really doesn't leave room for much else to go on. We have to be able to sit with the uncomfortability of a difficult decision, of a tricky conversation, of potentially breaking someone's heart. We have to be able to sit in the uncomfortability of that rather than overcompensate and put your needs and who you really are second. I promise you, the uncomfortability of it will pass, but what you will be left with is such a sense of self-respect for just doing the thing without the fucking faff. And ultimately, the person that you are delivering this like clear-cut message to will be grateful for it in the end. Because ultimately they're not going to be left wondering, right? They're not going to be left wondering by your message, which might have been all fluffy and like pleasant. That then gives someone a sense of hope. Like if you say some things that are like, oh, it's such a shame, but like whatever, this, like I'm going to end this. They're going to cling on to this is such a shame part. When actually, it's not a shame. You're not right for each other. It's okay. Do you know what I'm trying to say there? Keeping it clear and concise makes it so much easier for you to break apart and move on in a healthy way in the future. Now, I do believe that there is such a fun part that comes after leaving a situationship. And like, I'm not like emotionless. I'm not like, it's great being out the other side of something that you thought could be something, right? However, there is so much fun to be had on the other side of a situationship once you reclaim yourself, reclaim what you want, reclaim who you are and where you want to go in life. And that's not to say there's going to be days where you don't miss them, but let's remember, you don't miss them, you miss the idea of them and what you would really hope that they would be for you. So it's time to regroup, focus back in on the self, and in order to effectively move forwards, we need to do some things. We're muting them. I'm sorry, we're archiving, we're muting. Unfollow if you need to, because curiosity isn't care, right? Wanting to have a look on their socials, wanting to see what they're up to, wanting to see if they've been online. That's not caring about you. You have to choose peace. And ultimately, why do you care? I know this isn't as easy for everybody, but when I make a decision to move forward and to move on with my life, I don't look back. And there are days, obviously we're human, when we're like, oh, I'd love to have a little nosy. But don't bother. It's never as interesting as you think it would be. And remember, all that you're gonna see is a person that you wish that they were, not who they really are. So we're muting, we're hiding the socials, we're archiving, we're doing what we need to do. Then we want to figure out a trigger map, right? Songs that remind you of them, places, items of their clothing that they might have left at your house, friends in common that you might have with each other. We need to identify the triggers and remove them as best as we can. We're going to start a new playlist, a bad bitch moving on up playlist. We're going to find a new cafe spot rather than the one that you went to with them. And this isn't weak. This is not a weakness. Muting them, getting rid of their things out of your life is not a weak thing to do. It's rewiring. We just need to rewire to not having them in our life, which ultimately, as we know, is a good thing because they weren't bringing you happiness. The third thing that I want you to do, and I know this is kind of cliche, especially as women, but we're going to spend 1 hour a week learning a new skill. Now, this isn't because we're like, we're going to be better. You are going to be better. You are going to evolve and grow when you learn new things, but you get a sense of dopamine, which is a competence dopamine hit. That competence dopamine hit, which shows you are good, you're exciting, you are evolving, you are good at things, you can try new things, you can take control of your life. And that sort of dopamine, it is so good for us. When we have a sense of competence dopamine, we feel more confident and then we act accordingly with who we really are. Another thing I want you to do is 3 micro socialization things. So it might just be going to a new coffee shop and speaking to the barista, asking them how their day was, getting to know them a little bit, like just like a micro social interaction. Send a voice note to a mate, set up a FaceTime with a friend. This is a reminder for your nervous system that you belong, that you have community, that you know, there are people that you can connect with in the world. And these micro socializations are going to help replace the kind of the zoning in onto that one person of why won't they want me? Why won't they do better? Why won't they do this X, Y, Z? We're replacing that focus with a wider world around us. Now we're talking about this ending of a situationship as if like you're the one that's done it and you're the one that will do it maybe. And I just want to remind you that it's not fucking easy. Like I'm saying all of this, it's not easy to give up on a future that you really had high hopes for, that you know, a path that you really saw for yourself. So I want you to remember that by choosing you, by choosing clarity and what you really want is something to be so fucking proud of. And I just want to remind you that there are people out there who can and will meet you where you want to be met, and you will be so grateful that you didn't settle when you meet them. And look, if you've gone to somebody about a situationship and sort of laid it out and said, look, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, you know, where can you meet me in this? And they've ended it. You were not too much. You were too clear for them. You are too clear about what you want. You are too grown. You are too emotionally intelligent. You are too ready for somebody who is not. And ultimately, isn't that a good thing? The universe is moving you out of the waiting room and into the path of somebody who is ready. Now, if you are currently in a situationship or, you know, early stages of a relationship and you're not really sure how you're feeling about it all, I really want you to at least today put a clarity date in the diary, okay? Maybe it's 4 weeks from now. I'm gonna allow you 4 weeks to continue on this path of whatever is going on. But by the date that you put in your diary, you have to have clarity on the situation, because these things can go on and on and on. And when they do, they eat into the rest of your life. I'll say it again, life is so fucking short. Do not be wasting it where you are not 1000% wanted. In fact, let's end this episode by putting our clarity dates in the comments below. We're going to hold ourselves accountable. We're going to be there for one another as we build this Big Sister Energy community. And I just want you to know that these sorts of things are never easy. I'm so proud of you for doing the work, for really thinking about this and thinking about what you want and making the hard decisions sometimes. I'm so proud of you for that. Keep sending your advice, questions into my DMs at Helen Scott UK. I've had some really good ones and I'm going to start answering some of your questions in next week's episode. You can find me everywhere at Helen Scott UK. This is Big Sister Energy and I will see you next Wednesday on the Red Lips sofa. I love you.